Hey guys, welcome to week 5 of building the biggest invisible hand in the LEGO space. This week, we got a whole bunch of stuff to work on, including this massive package that just came in the mail. So let's get right into this package. I got the Target safety knife inside here. This thing is like the best knife in the entire planet, I swear. Man, this is hard to cut open with one hand. Wow. There we go, that's a lot easier now that I got this on a tripod. Now we don't have to worry about, things going wrong. Wow, they put a lot of tape on this. Jesus. Okay guys, so here's what we got. We got Technic bricks right here. You guys see? Lots of Technic. We needed that. We got more Technic. We got long bricks, 4x6s in light bluish gray because we needed it in that color because you can't get that from the pick brick wall. We got 2 of these long green things because they were so jerk cheap and I thought they were expensive parts. So yeah, we also got some blue Technic pins and these things. Yeah. I'm doing a great job at explaining this. Let's take a look at the grand total. So I was going to show you guys the invoice, but they didn't really give us an invoice except for this piece of paper which had like 3 parts on there that didn't really show the grand total, which kind of sucks. But I can tell you that this order was like $70, $80, which is kind of expensive. So guys, please subscribe down below. Anything helps. I mean, subscribing's free. It helps me out on the channel. Just watch this video, please. This is expensive. So now that that's all the way, we can finally get building. We're going to start off by building this back tail end support. We're going to complete it this week. And then we're going to start connecting this section right here to this section right here to make it one big whole vessel. I've been wanting to do this for a while. I've been talking about it for weeks on end. But now we finally got enough Technic parts and I think we'll be able to do it. So let's get into it. So the first thing I wanted to do was add another platform base to the bottom of it. I know I could just use Technic, but it'll be a lot easier if I just use one of these 16x16 bases. So I started to add that to the lower level of this build. But then I started to work on connecting the 2 sections together. And it was going pretty good at first, but then I had a massive fall. And this is that fall right here. So basically what happened is one of these supports got knocked over and then yeah, it was not good. It's not good. The panel fell off. Everything kind of fell off. But now we gotta go back and fix this. So to start, I took off the top base part because I feel like it would make it a lot easier if I just didn't have to worry about that thing falling in on top of the lower section I'm working on. And it was going pretty good. The thing about this is it's kind of a lot of trial and error because it's kind of putting together like a little bit of a puzzle piece. Here, I'll show you guys. So you see this piece and this piece. It's like I gotta make sure everything lines up. So that fits like a little puzzle, as you guys see right there. And then obviously the holes will connect like that. But it's kind of like fitting like a little bit of a puzzle piece together, which is something that takes a little bit of a while to get used to and figure out. But that's part of the fun of doing these kind of things, is just kind of messing around with it until it works. Now, for the next section, we gotta figure out how we're going to attach the bottom panels in a different kind of iteration so that when the 2 parts split apart, it looks like debris. So it can't be a simple 6x6 pattern right here because this looks a little bit too clean cut. It's not very staggered. It's very clean and I don't really like the look of that. So we're going to basically figure out how to make a rough edge on here with plates. And then once we make that rough edge, we got to make that rough edge connect to this one so that when the 2 strips are together, they look like they're absolutely clean and a part of one unit. Alright guys, I just made it a little bit more rigid. As you guys can see, look at that. When it snaps, it looks like it's actually snapping now. You see what I mean? This is so much better than just doing a flat line. This will give it a lot more depth. So when the ship actually snaps right here, which is where it looks like it's about to snap right now because it's not complete yet, it'll look like it's snapping for real, which is great. Like, it's honestly gonna look incredible when I can have these 2 separated and together at the same time. So a lot has happened since the last time I filmed something. So I started to put some plates together, like right here, right here, right here, and I also put on these ticket beams just for shaping and trying to figure things out. And I also put MTC on. And I was just kind of playing around trying to figure out proportions and where things were going to go, testing out panel ideas, etc. And let's just say this whole thing kind of fell over and the MTT fell on the ground. And here's the evidence, guys. A brown brick broke. This was so tragic for this week. I was really not happy about that. I really should have put more supports on it, and I should have more supports on it right now, right? But yeah, guys, I knocked over my MTT and I lost a big brown piece, which really sucked. But thank goodness that was like the only piece that broke on this from this fall. So it's safe. But yeah, it's gonna be insane. But the reason why I put this on here is because the MTT official images just dropped, and they're the same size. So I wanted to see how the new one's going to fit in this hanger. And it's going to fit perfectly from my calculations based on all the bricks I placed that are kind of falling off now, etc. But what I'm trying to say is the new MTT is going to look great in this hanger. And I'm super excited to put that thing inside the ship when the ship's actually more complete. Because right now it's just a skeleton, honestly. But what we're working on right now is basically adding on to this lower level in a sense to make sure we can get that complete for this week so we can add the secondary support for this back end of the ship right here. Because honestly, at the end of the week, I want this whole bomb thing to be all structured out so that way we don't have to worry about temporary supports anymore and things getting knocked over, etc. So to achieve this goal, my first plan was to connect the top and bottom sections together to make sure they're all one. But then I began to play around with it a bit and I started to think, what do I really want to be on this bottom level? I mean, it's right above the hanger. And then I thought, let's make it a lower hanger. So that way this ship has 2 hangers inside of it, which would be kind of cool. And this is very accurate to source material. If you're looking at a few images I show on screen, you can see that there's a little lift that can lower ships down into the ship. And I think I want to try to include that in the ship somehow. So that means I gotta change up this pre-made base that I already made and spent a lot of time on. If you guys remember from the first update, we actually had some stuff laid out on here. And we still have those pieces, they're laying around and they're not too hard to reassemble. But we gotta change things up. So I'm thinking we keep those existing pieces and we do something in the center. Now this is only a 16 by 16 plate, which means we'll have to manipulate this side to make it a bit wider and this side to be a bit wider as well, because there is no separatist ships that really fit in a 16 by 16 plate radius that LEGO makes. I mean, heck, you got Geographic Starfire right here. That's not going to fit through there, obviously. However, ships like a separatist shuttle, a AAT, or a Vulture Droid, which would be the most ideal ship, would be great ships to fit inside this center hole. So to begin this process, we had to basically take apart the entire back panel, except for the front end of it, which is good because the front end of this back panel was the hardest part to build and is filled with Technic. So that would have been very bad if I had to take that apart. But basically, we had to take apart all these 16 by 16 plates to try and see how we can fit these ships inside here, because honestly, another 8 studs is needed to make these ships fit, which is kind of a problem because expanding this part of the ship by 8 studs does have a major effect on the overall shape of the ship. You see, if I expand the Technic frame by 8 studs, the exterior shell may look weird, and I don't want it to look weird and disproportionate. So we may not be able to do this because the 8 studs added on to this panel may kind of mess up the whole ship. So to show what I mean, I borrowed this piece of paper that I printed a while back to get the initial framing of the ship down. So as you see that these line up nice with each edge, well, these don't. Yeah, that's a big problem. It's not lining up properly. And I'm just trying to think if I'll be adding on to this, to the paneling, to make it a bit wider or not. And I honestly don't think I will be. So this is a bit of a problem because without these being an extra 8 studs wider on each end, we can't fit things like this or a Vulture Droid. Nothing's going to fit down there, which is kind of unfortunate. However, there is one bit of good news about this. So we can fit a Vulture Droid down there. It just has to be the one from Revenge of the Sith 2005 or the Phantom Menace 1999 one. You see, those are small enough to fit in a 16 by 16 hole, just barely. I will have to put in at least one Technic beam on each side probably, just for the fact of I need a little bit of wiggle room for a crane to actually lift these things up and down. And then I will need to add these in just for the sake of having a lift these things up and down in between levels. But I'm very excited about this because that's one way we can actually get this to work, because 8 studs I can't live with, but 1 or 2 studs, that's more than manageable for the ship to look proper on the outside of it. So I'm very excited about this. I'm glad we'll be able to fit Vulture Droids. Of course, it's 2005 and 1999, which aren't the best looking Vulture Droids, but they'll fit great inside this lower hanger. Like, just picture it right now. We're going to have a bunch of them lined up, and it's going to be so cool to see that in this lower hanger. Even though they're not in the right position, because I know they're landing positions like this, not this. Regardless, we'll be able to fit a whole bunch of them down here, and that's going to look so cool. So that's going to wrap it up this week on the Separatist Dreadnought updates. not the biggest progress, but I am super excited for what's to come with this ship because adding a lift in the center of this to lift up vulture droids that's going to be completely automatic is going to be insane. I've already been looking at prototype videos on how to do this, and I'm super excited to actually implement these into this ship.